Security by Sylvia Longmire. She's a retired Air Force captain. Now she works for law enforcement agencies and says there's one law that makes it much harder to police the border. What's that?
You have drugs that are illegal, and that's obviously making a big challenge for law enforcement agencies to stop drug traffickers from crossing the border and interdict these drugs that are coming across. Then you have immigration policies that are constantly changing, and sometimes the message being sent to the countries of origin for these immigrants are in direct conflict with what's happening on the ground.
Let's focus on the drug laws. You used to support the drug laws.
Yes.
Wholeheartedly.
Yes.
What changed your mind?
A lot of experience with this line of work. When I was in law enforcement and the military for several years, so you being anti-drug kind of comes with the program. Then when I started working on drug war issues and border security issues, I started to learn more about the physical effects of illegal drugs. And I learned through my research that people who use illegal drugs will use them no matter what. And it's kind of
these laws don't really stop people from taking.
They don't.
So how does this hurt Border Patrol?
Because you have a black market. Anytime you have a black market for whether it's guns, whether it's drugs, gambling, prostitution, whatever the case might be, you create a world that makes these items more expensive. So now you have this enormous multi-billion-dollar business of Mexican drug cartels moving this product from Mexico into the United States, and they are willing, and the people who work for them, willing to do anything it takes to make those profits and get those products to users in the U.S.
It gives people a lot of money and incentive to sneak across the border.
It does.
And it's not just Mexico. A lot of these countries are suffering from this. The president of Honduras said Honduras has been living in an emergency for a decade. The root cause is that the United States and Colombia carried out big operations in the fight against drugs, which spread it to his country. It's like squeezing a balloon.
This has been going on for over 100 years. And whether you agree with the policies or you disagree with the policies, historically, those interventions, whether it's military or CIA, comes back to bite us decades later.
And the same number of people use the drugs. Sometimes when I listen to my president speak, I think he's about to do something sensible. Here he says America's war on drugs is not working.
Frankly, no matter how good of a job we're doing, we are going to continue to see not only drug use, but also the violence associated with the drug trade.
But in the same speech, he says this.
Am I willing to pursue a decriminalization strategy as an approach? No.
No? He sees it hasn't worked? He used the very drugs that his administration now locks people up for using? The law makes his Border Patrol's job tougher and creates horrible, vicious crime? And our president says, no, I'm not going to change anything? I mean, at least you changed your mind. You were flexible enough.
I was, but it took a lot of time, a lot of research, and also I wasn't in such a political situation that is so sensitive.
Here's a sample of the vapid media discussion about this. A proposed fix from the son of the former host of Meet the Press.
You know what's one way to fix all this, Alex? If people in America would stop doing drugs when they go out at nightclubs every freaking weekend.
Yeah, people should just stop using drugs.
Yeah, that would be an easy one. I always say that two ways to solve the drug problem were either to make all drugs from the bottom to the top either completely legal, or you get Americans to stop demanding the drugs in the first place. For better or for worse, it's an American thing, and trying to convince an entire country to change their mindset about the use of illicit substances is extremely difficult.
Even people who strongly support the drug war now at least acknowledge that its laws make it harder to control the border. Here's a Republican congressman from Illinois.
Now the cartels have figured out that not only can they make money on bringing children up here, but they can also use that distraction and the Border Patrol being distracted by the number of children to put more drugs over the border and, frankly, ultimately pollute our youth.
So kids are getting horribly abused. They're being used by the drug cartels. But this guy doesn't want to liberalize drugs. It's just too frightening, they say. Look at all the Americans who would be poisoned who wouldn't otherwise.
And we had that attitude back in the 1920s and 1930s with prohibition. It's a mindset, and I think with marijuana, the movement towards legalization, and even at the state level, has been a little bit easier for people to swallow because we've had so many years to observe that it's not killing as many people as we thought, it's not as dangerous and addictive, but that's been something in the making for a really, really long time.
And as a military analyst who has been looking at the border, why didn't the virtual fence work? I would think that would have been a big improvement. They gave up on it after spending $1 billion.
Yeah, part of the problem was that there was little control in spending. U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Department of Homeland Security did not have enough people to monitor how that money was being shelled out, how it was being spent, the cost overruns, the time overruns.
Just the usual government incompetence.
And DHS being too big for its britches.
Thank you, Sylvia Longmire. Coming up,